You're listening to Real Investor Radio with Fuhr and Jack BeVier, where we cover advanced real estate investing topics to help you stay ahead of the curve in your real estate investing business. Well, hey, welcome back to Real Investor Radio. I'm Fuhr, joined by Jack BeVier of the Dominion Group, and we were just speaking on the last episode with Pat Flynn of Flight Builders. We spoke at length about Pat's partnership in his previous company, Yellowbird. And if you haven't had a chance to go back and take a listen to that one, it was great stuff, especially for real estate investors who are looking to scale, sort of time the market, and really think about marketing in a way that probably a lot of people don't think about, tracking your KPIs and all the things that good real estate investors should do. And Pat has been, and his partners were really expert in that. So Jack, why don't you go ahead and kick us off? And Pat, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Yeah, so I wanted to dig in on your current enterprise. So you and Kyle decided you had different visions for the future and how you wanted to run your businesses. I know Kyle's operating a lending business right now, which I love that business, particularly from a lifestyle perspective. You know,
so do I actually. It's,
if you get your head around values in a market and you've got capital to deploy, right. I mean, pound for pound, I don't think it gets much better than a lifestyle lending business.
Completely agree.
So someday I aspire to chill out and just do that. That would be fun. Play a little more golf, you know, see the family a bit more.
You know, that's such a personal decision though, right? To where this is what Kyle wanted. And once again, not speaking for him, but he knows the market so well. He has capital, the money's out, but it's not operationally difficult, right? He can run that whole thing with one. Yeah. So if you have other things to fill your time with that you would rather do, there is nothing better. Like, I've been watching him operate now for 2 years, and he's good, and it's definitely not operationally intense.
Yeah.
Hey, Pat, will you share with us what you were doing prior to being a real estate investor?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Massachusetts, and the goal out of high school was, my old man was a Marine. I was going to be a Marine too. So I went to a military school in New York called Kings Point for college, U.S. Merchant Marine Academy.
Yep.
The military thing there, just, I was young and stupid, 19, 20 years old, and didn't necessarily subscribe to the discipline side of the military thing. So I didn't end up going Marine Corps. I ended up working offshore on like oil tankers. So I worked in the engine room of oil tankers for 5-6 years. And then from that, I went offshore on drilling rigs. And it was great. Interesting story, actually. The school I went to, Kings Point, I played rugby there. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He also went to Kings Point and also played rugby. And we have like a tight, like, little alumni group. So when I was a senior, he came there and spoke. And he comes for free sometimes just because it's his alma mater. And he spoke to the seniors just about wealth and that sort of thing. And I've always been kind of money hungry, like into that sort of thing. And when he spoke, just started reading and just dug into it and kind of never stopped. So working offshore on ships and drilling rigs, I'd work like 6-7 months a year on the rig, and then I'd be home for maybe 5-6 months a year with nothing to do. And I graduated college in 2009. So really hard to screw up a real estate deal in 2009. So I knew absolutely nothing and bought my first piece of land. And I graduated school in 2009, got on a ship. And when I got home, spring, I bought my first piece of land through a short sale, and then just kind of continued to dabble through there. Thought I was a genius because all of these deals made money, but I didn't really have the perspective of what was happening in the world at that point, right? I was in my little bubble of military school and the Great Recession and didn't know much about it, just thought I was a genius.
Timing genius, Jack. Time is.
Honestly, from 2000, I graduated school in 2009. So we were talking about this last time at RIR. Like from my whole career, 2009 to where we're at now, 2024, like it's been pretty bullish. There hasn't been a lot of pain. So I've never really been through it. So I'm preparing and doing the best I can and talking to people like Fred and Jack and getting as many perspectives as I can. But I think that's something very important to remember, that anyone starting in real estate from 2009 till now, like you've only had it pretty good. So that's kind of
didn't fare as well as you, Pat. I was sort of in the 2009 to 2012 time frame, and Jack, I don't know if I probably told you this, but at one point we owned a bunch of we owned about 38 doors in some of the seedier parts of Baltimore and all the up and coming neighborhoods, as they used to say, and dealing with a small local bank. We had $2 million of mortgages on those properties with a small local bank, and my flipping business was going gangbusters. Couldn't have been better. But one day the bank came to us and said, hey, look, we're probably going to send an appraiser out just to kind of take a look at the value on the properties. And $2 million of mortgages valued at $400,000. Yeah, so things didn't end up quite as well as I had expected on the rental side, and that was the Titanic that took me down. But getting back to I think it's a unique perspective though for folks who jump in, who have not lived through that sort of crazy time that was 2008, a time in which most investors haven't seen nor might ever again. But yeah, I mean that was a wild time indeed, but not to have lived through it and sort of through the last 10 to 12 years, I think is a much different perspective.
Yeah,
sort of that I'm bulletproof. I'm the smartest guy in the room.
Exactly.
I can do nothing wrong. But
Yep.
and I just want to touch on one other thing, that the Kiyosaki thing. When you think about how many careers that in real estate that guy has launched, it's really quite uncanny. But to have that sort of very close connection is even more so. Very interesting.
It was really cool when he came when I was a senior, because like I said, it's not a paid thing or anything. He just comes back to Kings Point sometime. So we got to all like gather around him after and have a conversation with him. So it was a really cool, impactful experience.
I know I know. There's one other question. I'm sorry, Jack. How did you know? Because I think a lot of real estate investors deal with this very question. How did you know it was time to make the jump from what was probably a pretty interesting career and probably one that paid you well? How did you know it was time to make the leap from your W-2 job to being an entrepreneur and jumping into real estate? What was the catalyst for you?
Really good question. I moved down to Florida. I sold everything I had in Massachusetts, moved down to Florida in 2013. So dove right into this market down here through all the RIR groups, started meeting wholesalers, started doing some direct mail myself. And so we bought a couple rentals at the beach. So I had some really good momentum. Yeah. But to be honest, in my mind, it was a really good side gig that I wanted to make full time when the timing's right, sort of thing, right? But I was having great momentum. I was making great money on the rigs, and life was really good. And then I was in Australia on a rig, and my girlfriend, who's now my wife, Jane, FaceTimed me and was like, well, I'm pregnant. This is 2016. So like I said, me and Jane owned a good amount of real estate together. Marketing was flowing. I took marketing calls from the rig. So we were like, things were moving like pretty well. And then in 2017, Nora was born on February 27th. And I called Diamond, who I work for, and I was just like, you don't need to pay me. Just don't call me for 3 months. Like, I need to be home with Jane. We don't have family down here. But once again, I want no money. Just don't call me. And they sent me a plane ticket to Singapore 2 weeks after Nora was born. for a 6-week shipyard job. And I was like, y'all made the decision for me. Honestly, I would have stayed out there because I liked the guys I worked with. I liked the work. It was good. I was making great money. Real estate was flowing. If Diamond had not done that, it maybe had never been the right time. So I left. Obviously, it's tough to make that transition for anybody. Like, I'm losing health insurance, losing stability and income. But at the same time, I had already had a really, really good momentum, like not only in buying and selling real estate, understanding wholesaling, owning rentals, but debt, but also like relationships in Jacksonville. It was nerve-wracking, but I was pretty confident I'd be fine because we already had some stuff going.
What was it about the Jacksonville market that attracted you to there?
It wasn't anything about the Jacksonville market. Come from like a small, crappy town in Massachusetts that you just don't want to be in your 20s in that town. And like I said, I went to military school. I had a buddy here who lived on the beach, and I left my $1,000 rent house in Massachusetts to live on the beach in Florida for $400 a month in 2013. And I had a balcony that overlooked the ocean, and it was $400 a month for my room in 2013.
The easiest time ever of life, right?
It was phenomenal. Like, man, now I'm married with 3 kids and another on the way.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So pivoting back to Flight and that business today, so you're fee building, you're also building some properties for yourself, and then keeping them as rentals or selling them to homeowners right now? What's the mix?
That's the question, right? So, I mean, I thought we had a great conversation about this at RIR last time too. I think just like in the We Buy Houses space right now, where I think it's good to be nimble and run lean and be adaptable to market opportunity, I'm doing the same thing now. So I own, outside of the fee build stuff, which is great, and that's rolling really well, I own 92 or so lots right now. I'd say 65% of those are going to be no-brainer retails. So we'll build the house, and Flight treats my lots the same as they treat any other investor. So I'm just a client of Flight's. Flight will build the houses. Working through, I got 4 real estate agents right now. We've trademarked Flight Homes to try to really, really become a home builder and go through the process of being able to market and sell infill houses, which has been a journey and I think is important right now. But 65% of those they're definitely retails. I treat them almost like flips, right? In my mind. The other 35% are rougher urban core areas of Jacksonville. So you asked where I think the opportunity is right now, Jack. I can buy these lots for between $5,000 and $15,000. And these are lots, some of them are septic tank, but a lot of them in that price range have city utilities. Mm-hmm. In the urban core of Jacksonville, where we're getting a brand new stadium over the next 2 years, we're getting 4 seasons. Sophocles and JWB have, $2 billion worth of development going on downtown, plus everything else that's going on down there. And we have Emerald Trail. I feel like I forgot what the project was called in Atlanta, but they have like maybe the Beltway project in Atlanta. We have one of those coming in. So I own these 35% of the lots I own are in these areas, and I'm not sure how the retail market will do for this stuff right now. And we can predict all we want, but you really just got to rip the Band-Aid off and try it. So what I'm going to do is I have 6 of those rougher zip codes under construction right now. We're going to try to retail them. We're going to try to pre-sell them, see if we can put homeowners in houses. If that really doesn't work, we're going to put DSCR debt on them and hold them because they rent all day, whether it's Section 8 or just to normal renters.
I know a guy who can do that for you. Just maybe.
Oh, believe me, I know. But what I think the opportunity is raising a fund of patient capital and buying these. And yes, I think I can sell them right now retail and make a margin. But the real play is building them and holding them for 5 years and then selling every single one of these retail once the Emerald Trail is done, downtown Jacksonville is done and goes that direction. That's where I think the opportunity is. I think we're going to look back in 5 years and be like, I can't believe that I could buy a lot in the urban core of Jacksonville for $7,000. Mm-hmm. And it's completely blue ocean because nobody sees it. It's very difficult to build infill in downtown Jacksonville. So we're buying lots at a unique number where we control the build, and what we're doing there is unique. I just think it's a phenomenal opportunity for the right investors. So I'm doing it at small scale.
So question for you, is the rental income enough to cover to cover your debt service, right, on a DSCR loan? Like, are you able to build the thing, refi off the appraised value, get your hard costs back, and then the rental income less expenses is enough to service that DSCR loan? Because a version of what I heard is that you're land speculating, right? Which I think is, fine, right? Like if you think, hey, this is path of progress, this is where I want to own 10 years from now. The nice thing about lots, and sorry, I'm asking like 3 questions at once, but the nice thing about lots is that, and was something like I screwed up when we were in Atlanta between 2011 and 2014. We talked about, oh my God, there's all these infill lots that you could buy for $5,000 that were, graded, pipes out of the ground, utilities run to the site, and we never bought any of them because I couldn't build and then put a renter in there with the rents at that time and service the debt. And we're just going to run cash flow negative. But what I should have done was just buy the lot and sit on it and cut the grass and pay the taxes, because land is like a levered asset, right? Like if real estate values, if $250,000 ARV goes to 275, and construction costs are, go up by inflation, the land value goes from 5 to 15, and then it goes from 15 to 40. And so, for the cash that you have sitting on the sideline, you can get really big, you can make a lot of money, just owning land in an appreciating market. Now, conversely, if you buy land and then the market depreciates, you can lose a lot of money very quickly buying land as well. But why build on them versus just land bank it?
You're completely right. And that's a good point. And it's something actually Steve and I discussed. You kind of have to look at it both ways. But that's a really good point. The main reason for it is because the main purpose of this is the growth and flourishing of Flight and the leadership here. I need to keep Flight busy building houses. That's not a good answer, just to build houses when it doesn't make sense. But that was at least the initial thought process behind it. But I think just buying a bunch of this stuff for $5,000 to $15,000 and the plan being to hold it and then find other opportunities for Flight to do building where the retail numbers make a little more sense right now is certainly on the table and needs to be looked at. Because to your question about it covering the debt service, just true numbers on that, and you're going to be faster with the numbers on lending, but we're going to be all into these houses for 160, 165 grand. They're going to appraise for 225. That's what they're worth, and they rent for say 1,350, 1,400. So my thought for if you raise a fund or something like that is, no, you're not going to be able to take the full 160 grand back out and have it cash flow and be fine. But you could probably take 100 grand out, depending on DSCR numbers at that point, and have it flow okay or break even, and you have great appreciation on it. But what you said about land banking and not building on them is a fantastic point, and it would be a massive mistake for us to not at least look at that path forward and maybe just slow down production or find a different little honey hole where retail makes more sense. It's a great.
Can you land bank? Like in Baltimore, if I tried to buy a bunch of land and then just sit on it for 5 years, I would get smoked by the city. Like just citations, they don't want people coming in and speculating on land. They want you buying and like moving the real estate or get the hell out of town. So like I've seen it in, just different municipalities have different perspectives on letting people just sit on land for a while. But if you're not getting any pressure from it, from the municipality, then that's better.
Like you said, mow the grass. If you keep your grass mowed, you're not gonna. No one has any issues. I mean, these are some depressed.
Yeah, that's what that was my question, Pat. Like, what, when I'm in my head, I see, Baltimore, and I don't think that Jacksonville is probably that dissimilar from Baltimore in many respects in terms of it. Go ahead, Jack. What was that?
No, I got no comment to that, Craig.
So, I'm seeing like, some pretty rough houses around you. You've got this, maybe a house was torn down and now there's a lot that's available. You're building your house there. It's going to be the nicest one on the block. Is that what we're looking at here?
That's exactly what you're looking at. And to be honest, what it does, what having a brand new house does to those streets is like unbelievable. So you can feel, what I love about this is like kind of, a little different from Yellowbird, where you're buying discounted houses and you're wholesaling some stuff to funds, is you are like one step at a time really changing that urban core. And sometimes you have some great people that move into them and take care of them and it lifts up the whole street, but obviously you have a lot of crime and you have people smashing windows and stuff like that, and you may have some people that don't take care of it moving into it too. But it really does push this urban core in the right direction, because a brand new house on a street just changes the whole look of it. And if the right people move in, other people in the street start taking care of their lawns, and we're not at the point yet where any of those neighborhoods are cool enough to be slowly gentrifying. We're not there. They're very rental heavy neighborhoods still, but we have to go that direction. I mean, it's Jack, you've seen what Alex has going downtown. Like, our stadium is going to be the best stadium in the NFL in 2 years once this is done. The newest, best stadium in the NFL. And like the Four Seasons is going right there. The investment down there is crazy. So if you think that, and with the Emerald Trail going in, I just don't see a situation where some of those urban core neighborhoods don't become cool. I don't see it. So, long answer to your question. I think it has to go that way.
So what are your customers on the fee building side of things do? Like the guys who are putting in orders of, hey, let me do 30 houses for me this year. Are they all spec building for retail sale, or is it a build to rent play for them?
Before you answer that, for maybe folks who didn't listen to the last episode, maybe you could talk about sort of the business model of flight builders. And we've obviously talked about what you're doing for your portfolio, but let's talk about the business model and what you're doing for others.
Yeah. So we are most people that we build for, Jack, are going to be like, if you order 30 houses in a year, like I can think of a client right now, like Cheap Coat. They're fantastic. They're flip investors who have moved new construction into part of their operation because it's super easy. They buy a lot and they treat the lot like a flip, and we build the house for them, and they sell it retail. So really smooth. The one kind of outlier, and all of the other funds right now and guys that I really wanted to do build to rent for, nothing's happening in Jacksonville right now. There's a lot of the home builders are all over it in Jacksonville, and land prices haven't come down at all. But as far as build to rent stuff, I heard there was one sold recently that went to a build to rent buyer, but I am all over all these funds trying to get business and build a community for them. There's just not transactions happening in Jacksonville. They're happening in, as you know, North Carolina, super hot spot for it now, and they're happening in Texas where the numbers still work. But there's not build to rent happening in the Southeast.
Just a function of interest rates still?
Yes. Interest rates and land prices, and the fact that the builders, the nationals, are still able to pay good numbers because they're doing okay with these selling retail.
Right.
So your outlier is a JWB, who is a big client of ours, and they're doing a turnkey model. So it is kind of build to rent. So they're doing a lot of retail as well. We'll build 120 houses for JWB this year. As an operation, they'll do over 400 though this year. And I don't know what their ratios are, and I don't want to speak for them, but I think probably maybe 60% of that 400 is going full retail, and the other 40% they're selling to turnkey investors, and then managing the property afterwards. And interest rates are hugely important for them on those deals, and they're having a lot of success right now. I mean, the bottleneck in this market is always going to be sales. It's not going to be anything besides getting these properties moved, but they're doing pretty well month over month. They're still selling stuff turnkey. So what they're doing is, I'm building the house, they're putting a tenant in them, and then they're selling them to an investor in property management afterwards.
What are you seeing from the difference in home buyer demand between new construction, renovated flip, and existing home sale, right? Like those tend to, they're obviously very correlated with each other, but people often talk about the new home sale premium in a slightly down market or a slightly more competitive market. The flip inventory the renovated flip inventory generally moves a little faster than the existing home sales, because it's not quite as pretty. It's not, not all decked out. Are you guys seeing much bifurcation in home buyer behavior between those three categories?
What I've seen so far is just your very basic flight to quality. You get a little bit of a premium for a new construction house right now, but still it's very soft. It's very soft. So if I'm flipping, I'm putting it on the market, I will be the best priced, best thing anywhere within that area, because I'm not in the business of having houses sit on the market. We're in the business of selling them. And if I have to give up margin to do so, I will do that. And that's the same way I'm looking at new construction. I haven't had, from the flips, Jack, I'll say I have no active flips right now, but I think that's because that's a function of my pricing and the fact that I will take a less margin to just get them moved. I don't have enough information I haven't had a wave of 15 new constructions retail to where I can give you a great answer on that. I can tell you our first new construction a couple months ago that got done, there's a bunch of actives up it. It was a beautiful house that would have sold for $385 in the peak, and we sold it for $340. Because I priced it aggressively, and it still took 14 days to do so. So I think we had the best house. I think because we had the best house in that area and the best price, that's why it sold. But I'm taking a haircut to do so.
Are you worried at all about ARVs coming down over the winter with the softness that you've already seen? Maybe offset a little bit by the lower interest rates, but I haven't really seen much home buyer activity despite the lower interest rates over the past 45 days. And I would have expected to have seen it by now, right? If people were like, hey, all of a sudden my rate got better. Yeah. There's a little bit of lag there because you got to call your mortgage broker to get a pre-qual letter and then hand it to your realtor and then schedule a showing. But that's usually like 2-3 weeks. And then we see a pop, and I just haven't seen a pop. So I'm like, that's depressing.
Yeah. Ditto. Same down here. And to your question, maybe a little bit of a different answer to it is, I'm very committed to this business model at this point. So I have to build. We have to build houses. I'm not going to slow down. I'm not going to, and I feel really confident that there is a number that these new construction houses will sell at my price point. And there's a floor. I feel like I'm not building $500,000 houses. I'm building $250,000, $300,000 houses.
Yeah.
I believe there's a floor there. So if you believe that, if you believe in Jacksonville and you believe we're not going to have a recoming of 2008, which I don't think we are. If you believe that, then it's a function of your cash situation. in my opinion. And talking with guys like you and the guys at Genesis is awesome, because you hear the statistics of, guess what? Real estate investors, 9.9 times out of 10, what is going to take you down is cash. Mm-hmm. So almost 100% of the time, it is greed and cash management that takes real estate investors down. So I look at it as the 80-20 principle. If I can put some bumpers on my balance sheet in my cash situation to heed this storm, and bumpers that help me sleep at night, that little 20% thing that I did just eliminated 80% of my risk. So we are putting bumpers on our balance sheet to heed this winter time period. And I'm raising a little more equity and paying a little more interest than I need to pay, just to keep stuff levered up and keep plenty of liquidity in the bank, just in case. So I look at it as, yes, me personally, I'll make a little less income this year because I'm paying more interest, but having a cash number in the bank after every single, I know for a fact, after every single thing under construction is built and on the market, that I'll still have X amount of dollars in the bank, then you really eliminate a lot of your risk doing so, because these houses are going to sell. You can rent them, you can do something, and if there's plenty of cash, as you said, to heed the storm, then you're pretty good.
It's going to be, I think that it's funny how much more efficient the market has gotten over the course of the past 10, 15 years. You are now operating a platform in Jacksonville that has no middlemen, right? You are both the one directly sourcing lots, like pay-per-click, direct mail, sitting at the kitchen table,
yes,
talking to the direct seller, and you're the builder, right? There's no middleman there. There's not even a middleman for, there's no developer middleman even. Mm-hmm. And so even if prices come down, as long as the market doesn't literally freeze, right? If there is a new home sale in Jax, you'll be the guy who's able to keep, to make a margin there, even if it's a slim one for a period of time. And I just don't think we really saw that historically, right? There's usually so many more functionaries in the middle there, and everyone was getting their piece. But when you take out all the middlemen and you're going direct to seller for the dirt, for the dirt that's well below replacement cost, and you're the one building at $100 a foot or less or whatever, wherever you're at, that's really hard to compete with. You'll be able to keep the lights going well past your past your customers, right? Even so, that's a nice place to be, taking the middlemen out.
That's a super insightful observation, and that is exactly that. But in the home builder space is just competitive, right? So I look at that as our edge. Our edge is we're at the kitchen table signing up dirt, and we completely control construction. And my last piece of this is, once again, we've been spoiled for the past 10 years. If you put a house, you can have any dipshit real estate agent put a house on the market and it's going to sell. I think the magic over not only the winter, but these next maybe few years of this kind of leveling out of real estate prices is going to be in your sales team. It's going to take grind and effort to sell this new construction stuff. I can't expect that I'm just going to throw these on the market and they're going to sell. So we're putting a lot of effort into generating buyers leads now and walking people through houses and getting our name out there as the affordability home builder and helping the community with all this sort of stuff. So if you can add those three, and you talk about efficiency and controlling everything, right? Now you control the sales side as well. So if you're signing lots up at the kitchen table, you control construction at your margin, and you have your own sales team to sell these, you're going to outlive anyone else that's doing this, in my opinion. And that's our strategy. And exactly what you said, you may have to ride some super thinner than you'd like margins for a while, but as long as you don't get greedy with your land positions and you don't have a bunch of developments that take you down, and you're just doing kind of piddly infill lot stuff, you can heed the storm until things turn back around.
I'm not personally one of the people who thinks that we're going to see nominal decreases in housing prices. Maybe it's a soft winter, but I think that as long as as long as you get through the winter, it's not going to kill us. I think, as long as you don't run out of cash, through the winter, I don't think it's going to be a big problem. But I think that, I'm curious from your perspective, what are I should have asked you this, what are the guardrails that you're putting in place? You mentioned being a little bit more conservative. What exactly are you referring to there? Just other than having just more cash on the balance sheet?
Right.
So, yeah, good question. It was cash on the balance sheet that I was looking at before, but we've turned to a new metric, which is cash after commitments on the balance sheet. I could have $1 million in the bank, but if I have 20 new constructions going and I have $800,000 of that's already committed to build these houses. So once the houses are built, I actually only have 200 grand. That's a big difference. So just because you have a bunch of cash on the balance sheet, if you have a handful of flips going and a bunch of new constructions and you need to finish those, that number is pretty meaningless. So we look at cash after commitments. So I look at liquidity and cash on the balance sheet. If everything I have in progress, every new construction, every flip gets completely finished to the highest level, now how much cash do I have? Liquidity on the balance sheet. I want to keep that at a minimum of, we're looking at like 1.5 or so right now, 1.5 million after everything is done. So what does that mean? That means that even though I have the cash to build a couple houses, I'll probably use Dominion, or I may use some hard money, and I may lever these things up and continue to pay interest on the cash in the balance sheet just to keep that number there and stay safe through the time period. The other metric we're looking at is our debt to equity ratio on the balance sheet. That's kind of a soft thing we're looking at. We're trying to figure out if we want to stay somewhere in the 4-to-1 or 6-to-1 range on debt to equity, and that can throttle your growth in a very healthy way as well. Mm-hmm. Plus, in addition to, we just got a line of credit, our first builder's line of credit with Ameris Bank, which we're really excited about, and they have loan covenants to where you need to be at a 3-to-1 spec to sold ratio. Mm. So if I have 30 new construction spec builds under construction, I have to have 10 under contract globally across my balance sheet. Mm. And I think that is another healthy bumper to keep on as well. So if I can take those three things, that 3-to-1 spec to under contract ratio, my debt to equity ratio on the balance sheet, plus cash after commitments and keeping it at a good level, I feel really safe doing that. Outside of a completely black swan, world-ending situation.
Yeah, I'm not, like I mentioned, I'm not negative on where housing prices are going, even over a 1-year period. I think they're probably going to continue to go up because of the inputs of kind of blue collar inflation into real estate replacement cost. But we've talked about that in a previous episode. I won't reiterate the whole thing. But but keeping cash moving, right, is really important. I've heard, 10 years after the fact, guys say, like 2007, 2008 just killed me. I was in the flipping business and it just killed me. And I always scratch my head because people kind of let that comment go because it was such a negative period in time. Yep. But I always scratch my head when I hear someone summing up their issues and like just blaming the market for it, because if they're only running a flipping business, because while real estate values went down, 30+% during the downturn, it took 3-4 years for that 30% to happen. It was we never really had home price depreciation of more than 10% a year. Now that's a big broad brush. I know people in Phoenix are jumping up and down right now, being like, no, the bottom fell out for us, and that's true. And so, like with few exceptions, the market was just what was so bad about that market is that it was down and then down again and then down again, just year after year after year. And so it was just brutal because you just never made any money. But we still flipped through that period of time and put cash in our pocket because we just let the market speak for wherever the market was at that point in time. And if you underwrote correctly and didn't look way back for your comps, and you were looking at, hey, what sold 60 days ago within the past 60 days, and used that to underwrite your exit, then you may not have made a $40,000 margin, but you only made a $15,000 margin because the market was down 10% in that period of time. It sucked, like you weren't making what you thought you should, but as long as you didn't trail the market down and just like refuse to accept the market clearing price, you did turn cash, and you got a better deal on the next one you bought. So like, I like your perspective on, we're a market seller. Wherever the market is, I'm hitting it. I thought it was going to be 385, but we wanted it gone, so we listed it at 340. And I think that I think it's very wise, because the defaults that we saw during that period of time were generally folks who were trailing the market down. And we as lenders, as long as the loan was current, let them. And that was a big mistake, because 2 years later, they were out of cash, and now we were underwater because our LTV had accrued up to 90+% LTV. And so like, that was the big mistake. Like, that's where we lost money, was letting people trail the market down. And that's what destroyed people, was them trailing the market down. But just turning your cash and accepting where the market is at any given point in time and living to see another day was, I think, a big reason why we were one of the few in Baltimore who made it through the downturn. And you seem to share that same perspective. So I think I think it's smart.
Yeah, I love that comment. That's why I really enjoy talking to you, Jack, because I think about that the same way. Yeah, exactly what you said, making sure you're on the leading edge of the market coming down, and you keep liquidity, right? You're very diligent about keeping liquidity during that time period, whether it's for a massive opportunity to take advantage of, or like an oh shit moment. But you made the comment about, it bugs you when people say, oh, 2008 crushed me. Like, I'm always the person that's like, tell me why. Like, tell me why the dominoes fell during that time period. I'm always so interested. And it's very rarely the same story. And a lot of the roots of those problems come from greed and the way they were operating during that time period, not necessarily the market. Exactly what you said.
I was just talking to a builder the other day, Jack, who just completed 10 homes in Florida. He's going to list them for 375. I'm sorry, 385. And he told me, I was like, what's your net profit? What are you putting in your pocket on these? It's like, usually around 105, per house. And I was like, well, that's significant. Where are they priced now? 385. He's talking about doing renting them out. And I was like, did you think about taking a little off the table for yourself? And he's like, well, we're going to try them at 340. He calls me like 2 weeks later. They're not selling at 340. And I'm like, there's got to be a market price for these houses right now. And I just think it's that greed and that sort of stubbornness that we saw a lot of post 2008 that you guys are speaking of right now. And you spoke on the last episode, Pat, about sort of the softness that you're seeing in the market right now. And you get a lot of that stubbornness and greed in guys who just don't know their numbers well enough, or just not afraid, or just don't want to live to tell another day, right?
Yeah, it sucks, right? Like, it's hard. It's, it sucks doing all that work, all that pain, and then being like, I'm going to clear 10 grand. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, this sucks.
I worked 6 months of my life for 10 grand, right?
Yeah, it's really hard to like make that decision.
It's way easier to bury your head in the sand and say, the world is wrong. It's worth this.
They're worth it.
It's like, it's very easy to do that. You have to, like I said, think from first principles on it and be realistic with it. But that's what caught up a lot of people, is I'm right, everyone else is wrong.
I was having a conversation with our sales team the other day. We do this like bi-weekly calls, and we just talk about real estate investing. The whole, team's invited to hop on, and it's fun. I usually get like 30, 40 folks on the call, all staff guys or staff people. And another thing that I think is dangerous, I made this point on that call. Another thing that I think is dangerous is that imagine if the DSCR loan didn't exist. Imagine if you had to go to a bank for a refi, right? Like the house isn't selling. You're going to lose money, right? If you actually sell it at the market clearing price. And imagine that you're now, it's 2000, and this is what happened. And imagine now it's 2009, and you have to go to your local bank and say, hey, I want to refinance this property and rent it out. It's worth 340, but it's not selling at that. But it covers at the rent that I've got right now. Let's refinance this thing. And they look at your year-to-date financials and don't see any profit, and they deny you for that refi because you don't have global debt service coverage. And then you're screwed, right? And then you now you can't refinance that property. I think we're going to see less pricing volatility in today's market because the capital markets are stronger, because the DSCR loan exists and didn't 15 years ago. And so as long as those loans are continuing to perform, and they have, delinquencies have not spiked up on the DSCR loans, not even as much as other non-QM loans. And that's kind of a really backstop, a luxury that real estate investors today didn't have 15 years ago. Now, so taking advantage of the gaps in the system, right, which are that product still uses retroactive, retro-looking comps, right? So the appraiser is still pulling comps from 12 months ago. If you're feeling softness, from my perspective as a real estate operator, if you're feeling softness in a market and you don't like the clearing price, from my perspective, refi the thing with a DSCR loan using the comps that you used, which may not be true anymore, right? Which you're on the front lines of knowing that they're not actually at 385 anymore. Mm-hmm. They're somewhere below 340, but you can still get a 385 appraisal to refi that with a DSCR loan and refi that property. That'll allow you to live to see another day. I'm not suggesting that we game the system here, but I think that's the nature of the product. And from a cash flow management perspective, it's a luxury to have that liquidity event versus taking the marks wherever the market forces you to, this winter. So I am concerned about softness this winter, and that softness leading to cash flow pressure. We're seeing it in our own book, which is one of the reasons we, continue to be both a lender and a flipper, is that it gives us kind of that frontline feedback. Yep. And help see things coming in our lending portfolio that otherwise, we wouldn't see until the payments stopped.
Absolutely. That's incredible. I mean, that's why it's great. Me and Kyle own this office together, and it's great having him right there to be like, hey, what are you seeing? What are you seeing? And it's like, he's got some people that he's lent money to. Not that Kyle would ever be in a bad spot the way he lends, but that are kind of following the market down and stuff. They're burying their head in their sand, and they're not willing to take a price haircut because they think it's worth more. So you guys have so much insight. Also in different market, you're all over, so you get frontline insights on how those loans are performing all over the country. It's huge, great information.
Kyle, in the couple minutes that we have left with you, and thank you again for your time. I'm sorry, you mentioned Kyle. Pat, what are you excited about, man? What are you excited about over the next 12 months with your business, with what you're seeing? You mentioned some of the urban development you're doing in Jacksonville. It sounds incredible. What really has your juices flowing?
So I do love and enjoy real estate, but I've found that when me and Kyle were at our peak and we were making the most money, it was honestly when I was the most unhappy, because we didn't have a good, clear path forward. I'm intentional with the way that I operate, and the way when not the bottom fell out, but when the hedge fund music stopped and we didn't have a good answer for how to run our 55 team members, that was a really tough spot for me. So I've set up Flight in a way to kind of, with the fee building combination with the real estate investing side, for us to be pretty nimble. When we left and me and Kyle split, I took most of the staff and leadership team with me. So in a lot of ways, with flight, I started on third base because I had a group of people that I've worked with for years that understood the way I operate. They understand traction, and we operate really well. So what I'm most excited about is I love coming in every day because we just have our secret sauce is the way we hire and train leadership. And I absolutely love it every day. I love watching these 24-year-old kids from Middleburg, Florida come in and forcing them to read and talk about what they're reading and come to leadership class and grow as people. And some of the leadership stuff we have, and between our book club and that and our monthly meetings and the way we operate, yes, this is a season of life where you're working 3 times as hard for half the money. Then we just talked about exactly why. During this time period, my team gets stronger every single day, and I'm getting some construction guys that I wouldn't be able to touch in 2021. Veterans who wouldn't even pick up my phone call in 2021 are coming and asking for work. So what am I most excited about? I am not excited to not make as much money, but it feels so right that we are setting up this rock solid foundation with such a kick-ass team and these vendor relationships that will be with us forever, that we are going to be in an incredible spot when things kick back off or opportunity comes knocking at the door. And it's so fun to be a part of every day, and I really enjoy the people that I'm around.
That's awesome. It's the whole vision thing. Tell me one of the books that you guys are reading right now, or one of the ones that you read recently that really inspired everyone.
So we just figured out in the leadership side of things, we read a lot of Jocko Willink. So we just finished up the dichotomy of leadership. And I feel like for real estate businesses, those different dichotomies, not only in leadership, but the way you operate your business, are incredibly, incredibly important, right? The aggressive versus conservative dichotomy in real estate is really important, because you can't be crazy conservative and be successful and make any money, but you can't go too far the deep end the other way. So we talk about those dichotomies, and they're just not only relevant in everyone's personal lives, they're relevant in all the decision-making that happens here on the day-to-day too. Another one we just finished the, one of my young supers wanted to read the Goggins book, and he led the book club. So we read that Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. It was fantastic. I'll tell you, my 2 favorite of last year was Lessons for Living by Phil Stutz. Just an incredible book about just perspective on life and growth and not being worried about the little things. Running a sales team in a real estate operation, it's very important to get that message across that the path to success in life is not linear like this. You can be going linear like this, but it is a bunch of ups and downs. And it's easy to let your mind feel super shitty about what you're doing when you're in the downs. But if you're doing all the right things during the downs, which I feel like we're in that spot now, you have to have the confidence that you are doing the right things, and things will come back up when it gets back in your control and the market gets a little better. So Phil Stutz, Lessons for Living, and then Ryan Holiday's Obstacle is the Way comes to mind for me during this time period. The thought process that, yeah, things are really difficult right now. It's getting harder to find flip deals, and it's getting harder to sell them, and it's getting harder to get capital. But just think about how much harder that's going to be for everyone else, right? So I'm thinking about these obstacles we're facing, and the fact that, yeah, it's forcing me to build a sales team right now to sell these houses. Where if I was building this business in 2021, I wouldn't have to worry about the sales team, because I'm just putting these things on the market and they're flying. But how much stronger does that make me now, having to build this sales team? Yes, it's work and it takes a lot of time, but every single obstacle we face in the day-to-day is one thing that makes it that much harder for the next guy that's following behind me trying to do this. So it's changed the whole operation and the way we look at like infill building. We're in the business of problems. Like every single day there's problems, and if you can operate well and think the right way about these problems and not let them just beats you down,
Yeah.
It changes everyone's perspective. And now the whole operation has the perspective that we're going to have problems every single day. And you can sit and bitch about them and cry about them, or you can just continue to move forward and think about how hard it is for everyone else. A couple examples.
I love that. I love that perspective. We have this in the property management side of things, which is a hard business, right? Property management's a hard, grind it out.
I've always said it's the most thankless business ever. Yeah,
very much so.
And we bitch and moan about working with the housing authority and voucher programs, but we love the tenancy duration and we love the lack of credit loss. And, so it's been like the cornerstone of our portfolio. But the difficulties in working with those programs administratively, we are like, we'll be sitting in these meetings and hearing the war stories about it took, 4 follow-ups and 2 escalations in order to get an inspection date scheduled. And we're like, dude, how does anybody without a team deal with this? Like, and the answer is that you just can't, right? Like it would just burn. If we weren't able to afford, if we didn't have the scale to afford the team where it was someone's, job to work through these obstacles, they'd probably burn me out, right? Like I wouldn't keep working with them. And I'm like, we're going to get some deals. But then all Fred and I hear now is that we're going to get some deals on rental properties. Like the mom and pop landlords this is going to burn them out, and they're going to be sellers, and we're going to get some, let's keep buying rentals. Right. So the more our property management team is frustrated, the more I go to the acquisitions team and be like, yo, get in there. We're going to get some, you should offer a little bit lower because they're going to sell. Yeah. They're having a hell right now. They're going through hell right now. Let's get some deals.
One of the things Jack and I talked before I came back aboard at Dominion in December, and the underlying current, if folks have listened to both of these episodes with you, Pat, is that the care you've taken for the folks that work for you. And Jack, you probably don't even remember the discussion that we had. I think it was having a couple bourbons one night, and I've known Jack since 2007, and it's just sort of this maturation that, like, Jack would be the first to admit that they, go through this period of like, you're new to the business and you're keeping everything close to the vest and you don't want to share secrets and you don't want to. But now, I mean, the podcast is an absolute perfect example of Jack's ability to really sit down and talk about any subject, any matter of business, not keep things close to the vest, share information, but more importantly, the care that I think that I see that they take over the personnel that they have here, knowing that each one of these people supports their families, and with a job here at Dominion. And Pat, I just that's sort of the underlying current that I've felt and heard throughout through these entire 2 episodes. And the last 10 minutes of speaking with you has been some of the most insightful. So thank you.
Oh, I appreciate that, Craig. And it really is. I kind of had a decision to make when me and Kyle split. It's like I could have kind of just kept my core team and stayed on my own and made money and had be very kind of stress free. But like I said, the money piece of it has just gotten so empty for me. And you look at it in the end, you look at your perspective of when you're done and retired and done with all this, it's just none of that is going to matter at all. What's going to matter is those relationships you forged. And a lot of my joy comes from struggling together as a team. And I think that's where a lot of just human joy comes from in general, is when you go through something hard with people you enjoy being around. That's the satisfaction of life right there, outside of, obviously the family stuff and everything. So I feel very fortunate to be able to spend every day with people I enjoy being around and solve problems and win together. And that was the purpose of this whole thing. If I wanted to just go out and make money, I wouldn't be building houses right now. I do think it's a good play long term, but I think Kyle went the good route for that.
Yeah. Jack, you want to tie us up with a bow here?
No, really appreciate you taking the time, Pat. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the first episode, you're always one of my favorite people to talk to about business. I get a tremendous amount out of it. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope all the listeners got as much as I did out of our conversations today. So thanks.
Yeah,
Pat,
thank
if
you.
anybody wants to find you online or learn more about the business, where can they find you?
Yeah. So do a couple different things. I'm definitely on Instagram, Pat Flynn Homes. You can go to the Flight Homes website or with your Flight Builders website, which is just flight.builders. And I write an email every Friday, and I'm not selling anything. I swear it's the most unspammy thing you can have. It's just my thoughts at the end of each week. So you can subscribe to that, and I really just write that for myself and share it with everyone. And I do my own podcast. I don't interview anyone. I just talk for like 5 to 10 minutes every week on what's going on with Flight, what I'm thinking about things, what I'm thinking about the market and problems. And I more do that for myself too, just because I feel like it'll be a really cool thing to look back on 5-10 years to see where my head was at every single week. So selfishly, I do both those things for myself. People enjoy listening to them, and honestly, with the Flight one, it's cool because we built it from scratch. So anyone trying to build a business from scratch, you're going to hear about major issues that you will have to deal with down the road. But those would be the best ways.
Great. Well, man, we can't thank you enough for your time. It's been a sincere pleasure speaking with you. Hope to talk to you again. And wish you all the best in everything that you're doing.
Appreciate it, Craig. Thanks, Jack.
It's Real Investor Radio. Thanks for tuning in today. Hope you got a lot out of it. If you want to comment, please go ahead and do so. We always love your comments, and let us know what you think about it. Talk to you on the next one.